Welcome to Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard, where we empower you to heal your pain on every level of your being, body, mind, spirit. Our show is about sharing solutions for creating the life you want. We invite you to stand up and choose a life of health, happiness, and joy. And we're here to show you how. This is Convergence Healing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another fabulous episode of Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard. And I love saying fabulous because we are fabulous. And I am here with a fabulous friend. I am sitting down with somebody that I met many years ago now. Back in the day, I don't tell very many people this, but back in the day I used to be an actor.
You're a very good one, if I may say.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I was on a set, and I did this little film with the beautiful Alexandra Paul, and I fell in love with her. And she was like, on the set, she was like looking at me like, who is this guy? I could tell she was like, whatever. And I'm like, I love you. And I even had this great picture where she was laying on a settee, I think it was. And I jumped on the settee with her and got my picture with her. And it was so fun. But she didn't know who I was. And I'm just some weird guy.
You were another actor in our film.
I know.
It was called True Love, and it was
Love.
in 2007.
It was a while ago. Huh?
Yeah.
So I think that was like the last time I did any type of performing. I quit
So-
almost right after that. It
Well,
was
your
like, I can't
listeners
do that
can
anymore.
now see what a great job you do playing
right.
one of the uncles,
One
if
of
I
the
recall,
uncles.
right?
Yeah. So I met Alexandra back then, and when I first saw her, I just knew that she was, I don't know, I just felt like a kindred spirit type of thing. It was just like, ooh, I like you, you know? And I've been trying to connect with you for quite a while, and I always invite her to my things. And when she said yes to this, I was just thrilled because I love who she is and I love what she's doing. And she has a very clear voice on health and on wellness and in the world. And I wanted to get that voice out to my listeners because, like we say with the show, this show is about healing talk, and it's about providing solutions for creating a joyous life. And it's important that we consciously create these experiences because as someone who's a therapist and somebody who has come through a lot of pain situations emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I understand that when we step into that experience of conscious creativity, you can call it manifestation, you can call it all kinds of things, but when we step into that experience and we say, this is my life, this is my breath, this is my body, and this is the life I want to create, doors open up for us. And that's what I see with the beautiful woman sitting across from me. She has transformed her life, and she's been a voice for so many movements that are about consciousness, that are about creating and about crafting the world we live in, whether it's with the environment or whether it's with food and diet and lifestyle. She is a clear voice for bringing this information into the world. So I always start my show by, I love quotes.
Well, thank you, Peter. I must say I'm a fan of yours both as an actor and as a teacher, too, because I've read your book. And I was.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
That's
yes.
sweet. Thank you.
You have had so many people read your book, you don't remember. We had an email conversation
We
about
did.
it. But
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes, I sent it to
I
you.
thought, it was
Yes.
great. It was really,
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thank
So,
you. That
yeah.
just seems so long ago, this whole book.
Yeah.
It's there's so much that's happened in the last year. It's amazing. But I go online and I do a search because I like quotes. I find quotes to be very inspirational and moving. And so I pulled a quote. I pulled two quotes that resonated with me for you.
Oh.
And so one quote is a standard quote, right? This is Hippocrates. It's been around for years. I'm sure everybody's heard of it. And it's a real simple quote. So I'm just going to read this one and we're going to move on to our next one. But when I think about Alexandra, this is what I think about. And Hippocrates says, leave your drugs in the chemist pot if you can cure the patient with food.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I love that. Leave your drugs in the chemist pot if you can cure the patient with food. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Now, the other one is from an unlikely source, because I never thought that this gentleman would have an opinion about food, but apparently I didn't know who this historical figure was, and it's Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison says, the doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, but rather will cure and prevent disease with nutrition.
That would be so great. It hasn't happened yet with our mainstream doctors,
right.
but people are getting more and more aware of how important food is in terms of our health.
And naturopathic doctors, this I think is the essence of what NDs do. And I remember, I don't know, 10, maybe 20 years ago, if that, I could never even find a naturopathic doctor. To find one was just like finding a witch or something like that. It's like, they're out there, but where are they for real? And they were kind of like that energy, like, this weird thing. And do you guys know that naturopathic doctors, they go to school the same as a MD for the first 2 years. They study the same exact information, the same classes, the same everything as your traditional insurance company MD for the first 2 years of their career. Then the MD will go and study drugs and surgery. And the naturopathic doctor then goes and studies nutrition and herbs and supplements and all kinds of other types of therapies that are involved around healing outside of drugs and surgery.
Yeah, I mean, it's really stunning how our mainstream doctors get so little nutrition
So
teaching.
little education.
It's like 7 hours or something in their entire medical career, which is really too bad because...
Well, that's better because I thought it was 4 before. So
oh,
maybe
well,
they
it might have been.
increased
It's not enough.
Right. And they're so hyper. I mean, again, I have my issues with Western medicine. Western medicine saved my life. When I was slammed into the back of a semi-truck and I did the whole death thing and my body was destroyed, Western medicine put me back together. But their expertise stopped there. And they were fantastic at that. They are so hyperly focused on drugs and surgery that they were able to put my body back together. Now, I didn't do the drug portion of it, but the surgeries, they completely transformed my life. A few years prior to that accident, those surgeries weren't around, and I would be in a wheelchair. But because I was lucky enough to find these doctors that were cutting edge and they knew what to do with me, I'm not living in a wheelchair. And it's because of them. So I'm grateful for that. Now, after that, for 30 plus years, all they kept giving me was a possible other surgery and medication. And those things never worked. In fact, there's a surgery that they did for, I don't know if you know this, but you know that arthroscopy, that clean-up surgery, I think it's arthroscopy, where they go into the knee and they want to, quote-unquote, clean it up.
No, they do
right?
a lot for meniscus and things.
Yeah, different things like that. Well, there was a doctor I was watching on TED Talks, and he said that surgery is successful 1 in 3,000 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he also said that prostate surgery is successful 1 in 49 times.
Successful in that you end up...
It actually works.
Oh, that you actually get rid of the enlarged prostate or the cancerous
That it actually
prostate?
works. I don't know about now cancer, but an enlarged prostate type of issue. That 1 in 49 of the surgeries is actually successful.
And you end up with a lot of side effects like impotency.
Tons, yeah. And with the knee thing, that cleaning up the knee, 1 in 3,000.
That's wild, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I've had surgeries too, and I wouldn't be alive today without Western medicine. But, we all live much longer because of it. But
Absolutely.
Do we live better? That is a question. Maybe that's when we can use some of the older wisdom.
Right. Yeah, and so that's what you're all about. And I've seen this whole transformation with you, where you've become this. I was saying earlier before we were on the air that I admire her so much because she's a voice for so many causes that I believe in, such as the electric vehicle, right, and the environment, and healthy eating, and you have an amazing lifestyle. You're running marathons, and you and your husband are doing all these things, and I love that about you guys. And so, tell us a little bit, like, why is this important? Why is what you do and what you're talking about, why is it important?
Well, I'm now a certified health coach, as well as being an actor. I haven't yet put that in my past like you have, but I'm really moving forward concentrating on health coaching, which is so important now because so many people, doctors don't have time to really spend the time with people to figure out how to really change their lives. And so doctors are sort of pressured just to give a pill.
Right.
Pressured by both their patients who want a quick fix and want something to happen, and by society at large and the system. So health coaching is a way to really change people's lives so that they take control and they have a healthy, active lifestyle that gives them true health, not just covers up and deals with symptoms.
Right.
And I've always been healthy. I've always been aware of health, and I've always been outdoors and athletic. But it's only been the last couple of years that it's been my business. So, and I have struggled with health. I think I posted this on my site, was that if you want to find your purpose, look at your wounds. Which is very true, So for you, look where you are because of literally your wounds.
Absolutely. There's a quote by Rumi that says, "The cure for the pain is in the pain."
Oh, wow.
So it's almost the same thing as the quote you just said. Right? You have to go to the pain, the wound, and that wound is going to guide you to your life purpose.
Right.
So is that a little too personal?
Well, I struggled with eating disorders when I was a teenager, and 20 years I was anorexic and then bulimic till I was 28. And it was only going through that and finding out real true balance and health that I became happy. And I realized that when you're struggling with your health and everything is harder. And if you feel good about where you are, what you're eating, how you look, what you're doing, and your energy levels, then you can deal with everything better.
Right.
So that's what I think helped me start really leading a really healthy lifestyle, a very active, healthy lifestyle. And so I want to help other people, especially women, deal with the stress of everyday life and how to incorporate healthy habits into it.
That's awesome. Now, food is, like we were just saying, an important ingredient to that. So our food system is pretty messed up right now, and people don't know how to eat. Like, I didn't know how to eat. I ate. People used to tell me that I eat so well, I eat so healthy, and I had this diet where I didn't eat a lot of sugars, I didn't eat a lot of processed foods, but I was a big eater, and I wouldn't think about food. Like, I'm not a foodie. Food to me is just an afterthought. It's something I need to do. And so when I ate, it was because I was super, super hungry. And I would make a giant plate of pasta and just load vegetables on top of it. And that would be my meal. But it would be it would be like 2 plates, basically, of food. And I would chow that down, and then I may not eat for another day or two, right? Or not a day or two, but another 24 hours or whatever it was. I just wouldn't think about eating. I ate because I had to, not because I was looking forward to it and wanted to. So, and that's pretty rare. Most people, what is the saying? You live to eat or eat to live, right? Yeah. Well, I ate to live. I didn't live to eat. But I come from a family that is like all about, like, my mom wakes up in the morning and she's thinking about what she's making for dinner tonight.
Well, in our society now, most of us do live to eat, and a lot of it's because we're surrounded by highly addictive, highly palatable foods.
Right.
Full of salt, sugar, and fat, which is not normal. And a lot of our eating issues come from that.
Right.
And we all blame ourselves, but really, it's not. Our biology is directed to give us the highest intake of calories with the least amount of energy used. That is how people survive, how humans survived years and years ago, and our biology hasn't changed much. So all of a sudden we're in this society that has food there all the time. You don't have to expend a lot of energy to get it. And so that's exactly what we're doing. And unfortunately, it's killing us. What used to be important for survival is now killing us. And I think we really have to give ourselves a break and understand that it's because of our biology and because of our environment that we're reacting to completely normally as a human being. There are very high calorie foods for the taking without a lot of energy needed to be used up, and so we do it.
Right, and that's interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that, because what you're mentioning is really an addiction response.
Yes.
So
And I know that because I'm addicted to sugar. I am addicted to sugar. I feel the demon turn on.
Really?
When I eat it. Yes. It's really apparent to me. So I have a lot of empathy for people who struggle with this. Which is one of the reasons sometimes moderation doesn't work. We get told, oh, be moderate with sugar, just have a little bit of dessert.
Right.
And we would
Like
never say that.
Addict, just have a little heroin.
Never say that to an alcoholic or heroin. But these are drugs.
Yeah.
These are they are drugs. And we have to look at it like that. So I am not a nutritionist, by the way. So I don't have that kind of certification or education. So it's not within my ability to tell people what to eat, but I can give a general rule of thumb, which I think would really help people, which is eat whole, unprocessed foods. And if you do that, you are so well ahead of the game. And when I say unprocessed, it means that it should have fewer than 5 ingredients. And if it comes in a package, if it comes in a box with the package inside it, you pretty much know that it's processed.
Right.
And that is not healthy. And if that is, and by the way, it's very hard to do.
Yeah, like 99% of the grocery store is food that you really shouldn't be eating.
Yes, actually, if you stay on the periphery of the grocery store, you will get healthier foods.
Right.
The middle aisles are full of packaged stuff. And that's the basic prescription. Easier said than done, but if we have an awareness about that first, we can really make a huge difference in our diet.
Right. Yeah, one of my things that I'm working on we were talking about before we started the show was that I had a huge inflammation response for a few years, and it got to the point where just walking for any period of time was practically impossible. And so I went on an elimination diet. It's kind of like a paleo diet where I could only eat meat, vegetables, and a tiny bit of fruit, and very specific fruits. And even within the vegetables, I had to avoid nightshades, which are tomatoes and potatoes and sweet potatoes and that type of thing, right?
Is that because you had an inflammatory response to those?
Yeah.
They checked it?
Well, no, because we wanted to eliminate from my body to bring them back in to see if I had an inflammatory response. So it was about getting rid of everything just eating in order to
starting over, basically.
Starting over, yeah, like resetting everything. And that's basically what I did, and it's been about almost a year. And the other day, I've been working with a guy, and he said, okay, you can go ahead and eat pretty much everything. Stay away from soy, stay away from sugar. Keep eating the way you've been eating, but, you can add things in a little bit here and there. Don't overdo it. So I was out, and I decided I want some potato chips, right? I hadn't had those in a long time. I didn't want to eat an entire bag, so I just got a little bag, right? And I was going through the selection of chips. And you say 5 ingredients or less, right? Oh my God, the crap that's in those potato chips.
And another rule of thumb is if you can't pronounce it, probably not a good
not
idea.
Good for you. Yeah. So I actually found...
How were they?
They were delicious. Oh my God, they're amazing.
It was a drug, that's why. Salt and fat.
Well, what I found all it had was potatoes, sea salt, and sunflower oil.
Oh, okay.
That's all I had.
Okay.
It had, did you know they put sugar in potato chips?
I'm sure they put sugar. I don't eat them, so I don't really look at the package, but...
Crazy. Why is that even there? I've been looking at all these different foods because I have to now, right? So I'm looking at all the ingredients on the labels and doing all this type of stuff. And when I decide to do something, I do it. So and it's a pain in the ass because I love my cake or cookies or whatever it is. No problem. I don't feel hijacked by it.
Right. That's good. You're not hijacked by it.
But I enjoy eating them. And I've never had an issue with food in my life. I never had any issue with that type of health type of thing.
So how was it giving up all those foods that you had to last year?
Because I was so committed to my health, it was, I did it. It was achievable. I've been doing it. I did it. It was fine. But I tell you, those first few months, there were a couple points because again, food wasn't a big deal for me, and when I was hungry I needed to eat because I waited too long and all that type of stuff. That was my habit.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So did you
So-
change that habit of?
Yeah, I'm a little bit better at it, but it's just kind of like who I am. Food isn't a thing for me. It's not something I really
Right.
look for. So I had gotten it down that I would have nuts or a banana, or I would have, different kind of carrots and other foods around, some yogurt or whatever, things that we would consider to be healthy. But when I went on this diet, I couldn't eat those. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't have my almonds. I couldn't have my walnuts. I couldn't have, some sliced meats, which aren't great for you, but where it would be a nice little thing every now. I couldn't have tomatoes. And I used to go for my lunch would be an avocado with the tomato and some hummus. And maybe some cucumber or something like that, right? Well, I couldn't do the tomato and I couldn't do the hummus, right? So, okay, great. And for a while there, I couldn't do avocados. And there were times where I was so hungry and there was nothing I could eat that I would just cry.
Oh,
That I would
you
just-
were that committed.
I would-
I admire you for not going off. It's very difficult.
I would literally just cry. And I would be in this state of panic because I was really, really hungry and I couldn't think clearly. And I was aware that I wasn't thinking clearly, but I didn't know what to do about it. And thank God my fiance is there because I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Right? And he would get me something to eat, right?
It's very difficult when you're making changes like that, and one of the things I really work on with my clients is planning ahead, because
so
if you are
threatening.
really hungry, then this gets a little scientific, but
Good.
your prefrontal cortex is where you make the decisions that are logical and good for you in the long run.
Right.
It's a newer part of our brain,
Right.
but our more primitive part is the impulsive part at the brainstem. And when we get tired, our low blood sugar, stressed, or we've just had a lot going on throughout the day, our prefrontal cortex gets tired. And so that's when we tend to eat.
Right.
And so we'll tend to eat in a way that's not healthy for us,
Right.
in an impulsive way. So I always encourage my clients to never get to that state where they are tired and stressed, because then their brain's not working well and they will reach for foods that aren't healthy. And that's why a lot of times at night, it's the hardest for people to get to the gym or eat well or not drink or not smoke, because our prefrontal cortex is tired from our entire day. So if we can recognize when we're vulnerable, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Because the prefrontal cortex makes the decisions, and we often in America, we think that willpower is what makes people healthy, is if they have more willpower, and that is not true.
No.
Because willpower is a resource that gets used up very,
Pretty
very
quickly.
soon. Yes, so you cannot
Yeah.
rely on it in
Yeah.
terms of health for the long run.
Yeah.
And so planning is super important. And habits, like you just brought up habit, like you had a habit of eating once a day, and that worked great for you. And then when you were told you needed to change it, it was difficult.
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
And the planning, because I'm not a person that likes to be in the kitchen. I don't like to have to think about food. I don't like to have to wonder about where I'm going next. I don't like any of that. So for me, planning what I'm going to eat is just a pain in the butt. I was like, I don't
So you
wanna
got
do
yourself
it.
a fiance that does it.
So
It's
thank
perfect.
God, and he likes to cook. Oh my God, it's great.
Yeah.
All right. So I and all my go-tos were gone. So it was very difficult. So the way I got through it was to just trust and to focus on where I knew I wanted to be. Like you asked me, how did I do that?
Right.
And so even if I was in that emotional state and I was, crying, I'd be like, hey, okay, you need to do this. And I'm talking to myself. You need to do this because it's going to help you feel better in the long run. And that pain that is no longer acceptable in your life will not be there. And I had to trust. That was the biggest thing. I had to trust that what I was doing was going to work. And so on that note, we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back with more of the amazing Alexandra Paul. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. You can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard show. I am so happy to be here with you guys. You know, this is part of my purpose in the world, and I am grateful for being able to do that. Alexandra has been an inspiration to me for a long time, and I've seen her go through her life. She struggled with you said anorexia and bulimia, and that's a big deal. I struggled personally with body dysmorphia. I didn't have the anorexia bulimia side of it, but I would look in a mirror and see a monster, and that's how I was able to. That's how I saw myself.
You would see a monster, meaning
I couldn't see me for who I was. I would think if the reflection that I saw back was so full of negativity, it was so full of opinions and judgments and worry and fear and anger, and I would literally see a monster. Like I couldn't see myself, and I couldn't see somebody that was attractive. I just could see this ugliness that was being reflected back to me. And that comes from a lot of different places. But in healing that, I started to listen to what other people said about me. And somebody might say, oh, you're a really good looking guy. And I would, in my head, I'd be thinking, no, that's a bunch of bullshit. But I heard a song, and this is so funny. Okay, so there's a song by Charles Schulz. You know who Charles Schulz is?
you mean the gentleman who did the Snoopy comic?
The Snoopy comic, the Peanuts.
Yeah,
Right?
Peanuts, right?
There's a Broadway play that's called The World According to Snoopy. And there's a song in the play that says, if it goes like this, I'm not going to sing it, but I'll talk it.
Oh, come on. Go ahead, sing it, Peter.
And no, it goes like this. If just one person believes in you, deep enough, strong enough, believes in you, hard enough, long enough, believes in you, it stands to reason that maybe even you can believe in you too.
Oh, nice. Very
And
nice.
isn't that great? I love those lyrics. So I thought, okay, other people are telling me things. Other people believe in me things. Other people are making comments about me, about my appearance, about who I am, about how I operate in the world. And they're really good comments. They're really good, positive, uplifting things. So maybe there's something there. Maybe I am that, or maybe I can be that. And so I started to trust my friends more than that vicious voice in my head. And that was another way, like you asked earlier, right? How do you get through these things? I started to trust the people, the voices, the opinions and judgments of the people I loved and I knew loved me. And so even though I may not be able to love myself in that moment, I was able to see them and hear them and feel them, and I trusted that they were right. So that was one of the ways I did it.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting about us humans. We humans, there's something called a negativity bias, that it makes it easier for us to see things that are negative.
Well, we're programmed for it. Our
And
brain
it's
is
a
programmed.
once again, it all goes back to that, right? If we were looking too much at the beautiful sunset, we'd get eaten by the bad lion. So we had to watch out for the lion, and that's what we tend to do still. Now our biology hasn't caught up with our culture. We don't
Exactly.
need to do that, but we do.
Right.
So bravo to you for overcoming that. It's not easy.
Well, I call it, there's an enmeshment that happens in the brain where the brain, which I say, I consider that primitive part, and consciousness, which is more of that prefrontal cortex, and wherever consciousness is, like we're trying to study that, where is consciousness? It's not in the brain. You know, we know it's not there. Where is it? We have no idea. But I hold a fist out like that's the brain, and then I hold consciousness as if it's like, you know, rock, paper, scissors.
Yes, it's the paper.
So it's the paper, right? And the paper is just wrapped onto the brain, but it thinks it's one unit. And when we get into a place of wellness, consciousness gets to separate and pull back. That open hand gets to sort of pull back from the fist of the brain. And the consciousness can look at the brain and say, hey, I don't like the way you're doing that. Right? I don't like that habit. I don't like that behavior and that type of thing. And the conscious brain then can start teaching the brain itself a new behavior. And that's where I bring in the hypnosis and the meditation and the mantras and the chants and, the spiritual work and the shamanistic journeying and all that type of stuff.
So that we're not owned by our thoughts.
So we are not our thoughts.
Right,
Our
right.
thoughts are just things.
Yes,
They
right.
just are. And so, and good, bad, and ugly too. Our consciousness can move in different directions. There's a shadow side and there's a light side. But living in that consciousness more and looking at the brain is, oh, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to have that addictive response. Oh, okay, good. You're doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Good job, right? Now let me bring you over here like a little kid that keeps doing the same thing, right? If you beat up the kid, it doesn't help. The brain actually gets more entrenched. But if you take the kid's hand and say, it's okay, take a deep breath, and you walk them over to someplace else, which is what the conscious brain needs to do, then the brain, that primitive brain, goes, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And the primitive brain learns a new experience, a new response in that. So that's how we are not our thoughts, and yet all we are is our thoughts. So it depends if the thought is of the primitive brain or if the thought is of consciousness. Right there.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's true that we do talk to ourselves in ways that we would never talk to our best friend.
Oh my God. We are so abusive.
I know, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And we know that if we talk to our best friend that way to try and encourage them to
They'd be
change their
flipping the bird
behavior,
at us.
and it wouldn't work.
No.
Like if it was, you are a terrible, lazy person because you're not going to the gym this morning.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed of you. I'm ashamed of you. How would you
your
do
friend
that?
would never go to the gym,
No.
right? That
And they would
wouldn't
never
be
talk to you.
inspirational.
Yeah,
So it's funny how we
know.
feel like we're a little. Anyway, yes, it's true. So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you have some tips to share with us about
yes.
bringing a healthy world, healthy lifestyle into our lives, right? Okay. So tip number one, what do you got?
Well, it actually dovetails off something you said in the first segment, and that is that you said that to get yourself healthy again, you needed to remember how important it was for you to feel good and not feel bad like you did. And
Right.
one of the things that I really encourage my clients to do is to really understand why they want to reach the outcome that they want to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we say losing weight is one of the biggest reasons people come to me. They think I want to look better. And that might be a component, but it's often not enough motivation.
Mm-mm.
And what if we go deeper, we find out that maybe it's really because you want to have less weight on you so that you can be healthier and play with your grandchildren. There are deeper, more transcendent reasons that can motivate us rather than just losing 10 pounds so people will say you look good.
Right.
And that's really important for people to uncover. And sometimes it's hard for us to uncover them. We do it in coaching with continuing to ask, just go deeper and deeper, why?
Yeah.
Why? And people can, and also look to the positives in their life, their strengths and their values, because we want the goals that we set to mesh with our values.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Yeah, that's great. Now, but if somebody is in that place of, like where I was crying on the floor, right? How do you get to that why if you're in that state? And I imagine you have people coming to you like that. I mean, they may be looking like they're holding their life together and they're doing their thing, and they're obviously reaching out, so they have a degree of stability. But that why, a lot of people don't know, and it's only the superficial type of thing. I want to fit into my wedding dress, or I want to play with my grandkids, or something like that. How do you coach people to get a strong, tuned-in why? I mean, yes, you just keep asking why, and you keep going.
You can. Michael Pantalano, who talks about how to help people
Right.
change, he feels you asked like 5 whys, but it's important to hold a space for people's pain and just let them feel it and inquire, be curious. And coaches don't offer solutions. We feel that the client really has the solutions. And so we let them feel that,
Right.
but also ask them about their strengths and what has worked in the past. And by asking what kind of things are going right in your life now, what are you doing well in your life?
Shifting that focus.
It's shifting the focus. We never negate the feelings, but once again, the negativity bias will take over and hijack you, and that's not a productive place. So it's about letting the client begin to see the other sides of them and the power that they do have, the successes they've had. So many people in our society, especially here, are so successful in so many ways, and then with their health and their weight and their eating and regular exercise, they can't seem to do it. They think they're terrible, but if they look at their lives, they see how successful in all their strengths.
Right. So what you're doing is that example is you're separating that enmeshment of the conscious brains of that. When you can get them to actually see that conscious brain's like pulling back from that enmeshment.
And one of the ways I do that, and this dovetails into my second tip, and this obviously is after a lot of just curiosity. And one thing about coaching that's different, I've been in therapy for years. I think I was in therapy from age 16 when I first became anorexic to I stopped throwing up when I was 28, but I stayed in therapy till I was 32 and helped me a lot. But therapy focuses a lot on the past and it focuses on what went wrong. And coaching focuses a lot on the present and the future and what's going right.
Yes.
And where you want to go that's right. Because a lot of therapists have discovered that, yes, they've taught their clients how to recognize the blind spots and things like that, which is important, and the bad things, but they didn't know how to teach them to be happy. And so coaching really teaches people how to live a life of happiness rather than figuring out what the heck, where we went wrong and
you just summed up exactly why I didn't go to my MFT. I got an MA instead of an MFT because in traditional psychology,
you were ahead of your time because positive psychology only came up 15 years ago.
Right.
Awareness.
Exactly. And it's still very unknown. I mean, there's still, and it's so funny, there was a study that came out that it said, if you keep talking about your past and you keep going into your pain, all you're doing is taking that neural pathway of your pain and strengthening it. So you're digging that groove basically deeper and deeper and deeper.
And yes, and that's exactly why when we the way to separate that more primitive brain with the more conscious brain, logical brain too, is to set really clear goals for what you want. Okay,
yes.
So we call them SMART goals, and it's really important. I'll just dovetail off what you just said. Is a lot of us set goals like, I'm not going to eat any chocolate. Well, what's the word in there? Chocolate. Well, immediately you say, I'm not going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to eat chocolate. What are you thinking of?
All
chocolate.
Exactly.
So I help clients set really clear goals that are positive actions they can do.
Right.
Not things they can't do, but things they can do. So if I had a client who didn't want to eat chocolate, the goal would be, when I crave anything sweet, or we could say chocolate, I will have a apple instead, and see how that works, so that the focus isn't on the not having the chocolate.
Right.
And setting clear goals is very important. My goddaughter's living with us this summer, and she wants to get up earlier, so she's studying for the bar. She wants to get up earlier so she can start studying, and she had written down a goal of going to bed at a better hour. And I said to her, that is not a very clear goal.
What does that
What's
mean?
a better hour? Because let me tell you, if you're watching a show you like, a better hour is when the show ends.
Yeah.
So you have to decide in advance what you're going to do. Make sure that it's very clear, that you set a clear goal beforehand. Because we all think we're going to act our best selves in the moment, and actually we are not usually, we don't make the best decisions in the moment. We make the best decisions beforehand, and our body and our mind starts moving towards that positive way of acting.
I want to touch on that a little bit more when we come back, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, great. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And please share our podcast with people that can benefit from our delicious teas. As you're pour it out. It was perfect.
I was just buying one of your delicious teas.
And you can check out our teas at convergencehealingteas.com.
So good.
And we'll be right back. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. You can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. All right, my people. So we are back. I am with the beautiful Alexandra Paul. And before we took our break, we were talking about lots of different things. Alexandra gave us a bunch of different tips, but one that really spoke to me is goals and goal setting and why goals are important. And it reminded me of something for myself because I often had what was called a away from motivation in setting a goal, right? I would set a goal and I would get to that goal and then I didn't have a reason to keep going anymore. And so the easiest way to explain that in what I learned was either around money or a wedding dress.
Oh, okay.
So the idea with a wedding dress
I
is...
didn't know you wanted to wear a wedding dress.
Well,
but
no, I
okay,
didn't.
Fit into a wedding
I
dress.
certainly didn't. Actually, that one time I did, I can't tell you how much I hated that. Oh my God. I appreciate... My ex is a female impersonator and is fabulous, is amazing.
I'm sure you looked gorgeous in it.
Incredible. But I do not like it. I do not want, when he would come home, I'd be like, take that stuff off. I would appreciate him when we went and performed. But and I love going to see shows, but I didn't want it around me. I just didn't, and I hated doing it. Oh my God, there's supposed to be, my friends that do it talk about this liberty in doing it and how it creates this whole other freedom for them, and to me, I just get annoyed. I'm like, oh, take this crap off. No, I don't like it at all. So yeah, drag and I don't get along, but I have a big appreciation for it, and I'm a supporter. I'm an absolute supporter. I always go tip the girls. So the wedding dress idea is that someone will say they want to look a particular way to fit in their wedding dress, right? So they'll do something, lose weight. They'll be super disciplined. They'll go through all this stuff. They'll do things that are actually most of the time not good for themselves because they won't eat or whatever it is in order to get to that weight. And they get to that weight and now there's no reason because they're wearing the wedding dress and the wedding is over. So there's no reason to maintain that weight. So they do that up and down roller coaster, right?
Well, because their goal is not to maintain the weight, it was just to lose it.
Just to look good in that moment.
In that moment.
Yeah.
And as you know, an object in motion is much easier to keep in motion. So when you stop because you've had the wedding, you've got to start all over again to get it up to, change your habits to be healthy.
Exactly.
So you're right. When one of my clients is training for, let's say, a marathon or something, and they're getting in, or even 5K, if they're starting to exercise, it's always good to make sure that, yes, okay, that's a goal, but we need to talk about what are you going to do after?
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, and so like when I was going through that food issue, there was a bigger goal.
Yes.
And the bigger goal wasn't just to not eat that food. The goal was to feel good in my body. And so I was willing to cry in the corner and not eat whatever that other stuff was because the bigger goal was more important to me, that why.
I find that a lot of people make things hard for themselves because they feel like they should have the willpower to not eat that cookie.
Right.
And so they will allow cookies to come into the house. But we are all powerless against these drugs. Well, most
times,
people are.
Yes.
And so if we understand our vulnerabilities, we have to also make it easy on ourselves.
Right.
Not only set the right goals, make sure they're specific. Like, you talked about moving towards goal or away goal. If you have a goal that is really specific, for example, if clients want to work out more. Now, that is not a specific goal.
Right.
So it would be more a goal. I would have them reframe it to, okay, how many times a week do you want to work out next week? And they would choose, and then we'd figure out what time, when, and for how long. And that way, they don't have to make the decision in the moment, and they've already planned it ahead of time. So it's back to what we talked about in the beginning, which is planning really is a big component of a healthy lifestyle. And then once you've planned and you've repeated it over and over, it becomes what's called a habit, which is golden.
Now, I would add to that, if you're sitting down with someone and they're creating a habit, right? They're consciously saying, this is what we want, this is when we're going to do it, this is the experience. I would say involve as much of the brain as you can in understanding that experience before you do it. Because then the brain has the support
So like a visualization?
Exactly. Well, a hypnosis, a visualization, a guided imagery, or none of that, and just engaging the parts of the brain that are recording information. Because the parts
Give
of
me
the
an
brain.
example.
So, there's different parts of the brain that record information, right? There's the sensory there's the data of what something smells like, what something looks like, what something tastes like, right? What that experience feels like, sounds like, what's the texture of it, right?
Yeah.
And your brain right now, even as you guys are listening and as we're chatting with each other, our brains are recording a sensory data. Right? They're recording the temperature, texture, color, sound, smell, taste of this moment or lack of. But they are recording that moment, right? It's why when we have something traumatic that happens or something that was painful to us, right? The brain was recording that experience. And there may have been a smell to that experience or a taste that the moment now we get that taste or that smell, it brings us back to that experience, right? And that's the sort of the shadow side about how the brain works, but you can get it, right? So if we're setting up a new habit with somebody, one way to take it further is to ask them and say, okay, we know we're going to do it at this time, and we know we're going to do this activity. Now, what does it look like? So can you see yourself in that experience? What does it feel like to be in your body while you're having that experience?
I love it.
What is the temperature, the texture, the color, the sound, the smell, the taste? And can you just think about that? Now, you could take them through a hypnotic way to do it. You could ask them to close their eyes and visualize, imagine, and think about and go on a little visual journey with it all. But you can also just do it if somebody's very, in their head, very logical, that type of person. You can just say, okay, will you think about this? And you're there at 5 o'clock. And you just finished work and you're walking into the gym. What does it feel like for you to know that you had that success, that you walked into the gym, that you did what you said you were going to do? What does that feel like? What's the texture of it? Is there an ease to it? Is there a roughness? Now, roughness, some people think is a negative feeling, right? But for me, rough is good because when I think about rough, I think about those awesome terry cloth towels from cheap hotels.
But now, so let me ask you, you were asking
scratchy.
about the walking into the gym. So are you, and you're asking how they're feeling about themselves. Do you ask about the sensory and all the different parts of incorporate the parts of the brain to what the
know
gym
that
is
experience, to know the experience for themselves in doing that.
Do you
thing.
ask about what does the gym look like, smell like?
No, I'll ask
it's more
it from
about their point of view,
Exactly.
how they're feeling.
Exactly.
What kind of feeling?
Yeah, because if you can get the brain to understand experience before they physically have it,
Yes.
then that is a knowing already in the brain.
And that's probably something that you did when you realized I'm going to feel so much better.
Absolutely.
And that was the thing that kept you from eating
Yep.
the food that was bad, even
Yep.
though there wasn't any alternatives.
Yep, absolutely. Because I had a vision
Right.
of what I looked like, what I felt like, what I sounded like. I knew I could see myself, I could feel myself. So depending on how people take in information, right? Some people it's going to be important to see themselves doing that activity or being in that experience. Some people, if they're more tactile, they need to feel what it's like.
Right.
So can you think about what it feels like to have already achieved that goal, to already be at the gym?
Yeah.
What does it feel like to be doing that cardio work that you were going to do or that weightlifting type of work? What does it feel like in your bones and your muscles to feel that strength that you're building, right? What's the color of it? And color is really powerful, or taste or smell, because it's not like you're generally eating at the gym or tasting things at the gym, but your brain is looking for that data. So if you can associate a smell of like frankincense maybe, or a smell of lavender, or something that calms the nervous system, that creates an at ease experience in the body, right? And maybe they'll bring an essential oil in. So if you want to and strengthen that experience, you would have, if they say lavender while they're sitting down talking to you, you have them go get a lavender essential oil, and the moment they walk to the gym, or while they're in the car at the stoplight going to the gym, they're putting some on their temples or wherever, and they're smelling that because it's reinforcing that experience of already being at the gym.
And they have an positive association.
And color is really powerful because like if I was to ask a painter to describe an emotion, right, they would have a color. And so if I was to ask you to describe that experience of being at the gym, feeling so strong and powerful and healthy in your body, what color would communicate that strength?
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe they'll wear that color.
Right.
Or maybe
right.
they'll just feel it pouring into their bones,
Sure.
or that type of experience. So it's to take it to kind of that next step and engage the brain in this experience of, okay, great, we did outside work of, we got the schedule and we got the time and we got the day and we got how much time we're going to spend there and we got the outfit, right? But what's the knowing of being in that experience?
I love that. I will
right
incorporate that because I think that will be we don't usually incorporate it in the SMART goals, but usually when we're creating a vision for where we want to go, we use it, but to do it with the goals for next week is also where we want to go.
I do it all
Makes
the time.
sense.
I do it all the time because it's using the tools of the brain.
Yeah.
And it's using the brain to actually
to work
create.
for you instead of against you.
Exactly,
Because as
your
we
brain
know,
is
that
doing
brain.
And it's doing it all the time, whether you want it to or not,
Right.
for or against. So when you can be in that place of consciously saying, this is for, and this is what I'm creating, it's powerful.
Right.
So we need to wrap up. I could talk to you for hours, and I think you're just lovely.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Peter, thank you, and keep up the great work. You've got so much to
thank
offer.
you. Well, back at you. And tell people how they can connect with you.
Well, I'm on Facebook at Alexandra Coaching, and oh God, I have all my acting stuff, and so let's. Oh yes, okay. I'm at Twitter at A Health Coach, and Facebook is Alexandra Paul Coach, and my website is alexandracoaching.com.
Awesome. AlexandraCoaching.com. Thank you. Everybody look her up. But coaches are important. They're an important part of our lives, and they keep us in that direction of developing a conscious life. And so thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We love you. We're so happy you're here. Share this with people. We're about bringing this healing and this holistic and this integrative work into the world, into our lives, and incorporating it into our beings. Make a habit for yourself that is happy, joyous, and free. And stay tuned until our next episode. Make it a beautiful day. Bye-bye.